The first item on the agenda is the 25-mile-per-hour vest. Kathy, you want to talk about that?
Okay.
Cassie?
As you see, I purchased 10 of these, the slow down 25 miles an hour vests. And people actually who read the e-blast last week have already reserved some of them because they want to wear them. But in the last place I lived, people were given these vests, and when they walked around the property or they walked their dogs, it actually slowed people down because everybody winds up going 35 miles an hour because it's so easy to do here. But if you see somebody with that vest on, all of a sudden you look at your speedometer and you go, oh, yeah, 25. So I'm hoping, because we get so many complaints about speeding, that we can give these away and that people will wear them and it'll help. So there's extra large and small medium. If any of you want to take one, be my guest.
Only if you promise. Only if you promise to walk 5 miles a day.
Thank you, Kathy. The next item on the agenda is ad hoc committee guidelines. Who wants to start on that? Or who put it on the agenda?
Excuse my voice, it's not right. One of the things that, well, it sounds awfully loud. One of the things that came up, I got an email regarding whether the meetings were open or not for ad hoc committees. And it's my understanding that all of our meetings are open except the board executive sessions. Which brings up the other question is, well, if I can go to an ad hoc committee, how do I know when it's going to be and where? And that's kind of a little difficult because they don't operate on a regular schedule as we do. But they are scheduled. And I would suggest two possibilities. One of them is to, if someone has a question and wants to attend one of the ad hoc committees, they can either call the chairman of the committee or they could call the OVA office because it's already scheduled there. And the other one is to put down a note, you know, in the centerfold section of the Oakmont News, we have our schedules, all the different committees and clubs and all that stuff's on there. There may be something there that might be able to direct people to find out the answer to their question. But this has never really come up before, and I thought I'd kind of kick it up and talk a little bit about what the situation is.
I would just like to comment on we have an existing policy for ad hoc committees. It's part of our entire policy on committee organizations, and ad hoc committees appointed by the board for a specific project and are automatically disbanded when the project is completed. And it goes on. If ad hoc committees are made up of board members only, they are not subject to the requirements set forth in paragraph 9 above, but otherwise such ad hoc committees are bound by those requirements. And those requirements are, although Roberts states that only committee members have the right to attend committee meetings, the OVA policy shall be that all regularly scheduled meetings of standing committees shall be open to attendance by association members and residents. So our policy is that meetings are open. Now, the problem is, John pointed out, is sometimes the notification of particularly ad hoc committees, because we operate ad hoc committees on a much more informal basis. We don't have regularly scheduled. So the problem is, how do we notify people of meetings that aren't scheduled on a regular basis?
Anybody else want to comment? Is there any feeling that we need to change our policy or do anything in response to this?
You want to say something more?
I don't know that the policy has to be changed, but I would like to see, I hate to use the T word, transparency. If we publish it and make it a little easier to find and make it clear that people are welcome to come, I think it might relieve some anxiety. Now, it would not require a policy change, and just a matter of routine way we do business.
Cassie, do you know if this ad hoc committee policy is on the website?
I don't know if it's on the actual policies on the website. We can check that out, but we can't put it on the calendar of events because none of the people are actually on the ad hoc committees adhering to a strict every Tuesday, every second Tuesday or whatever, unless the burger committee is done, but they're not. So the only thing we could do to post it, and again, it would be constant sandwich boards, constant posting, or we could put it on an e-blast that says at 9 o'clock, the committee meeting is going to meet in room X.
Okay. I would like to see the actual policy that we have, though. Make sure that it's on the website.
All the policies are on the website.
It should be on there.
It is
They
there.
are, all of them.
Okay. Great. Did you have a comment?
Yeah. How would it be if we put any new ad hoc committee in the newspaper with the chair of that committee's email and phone number? If anyone wants to attend the meeting, they just contact that person.
That's a good idea.
Great idea.
Sometimes.
You're worth
And-
every penny.
The other point is, you can visit as a resident. That doesn't mean you have the right to participate directly. In other words, you could ask for permission to speak or something, but you don't get to come into the meeting and become part of the plan. You can request to participate, but you don't come in with a right to I hate to use the word interfere, but there is some control there, and it's up to the chairman of the committee. And I wanted to make that clear. It's for informative reasons, or to pass on some comments with permission works. Beyond that, it can get a little sticky.
Anything else? Yes, Andy?
I do believe in the design of our new website. We have the capabilities of being able to list all the ad hoc committees and the access to finding out when their meetings will be available through a search function, through the calendar, or through some function through the calendar or some capacity that's built in. Jackie?
That's correct. There is, in the new website, there may be a calendar function where that would be possible, and there is a tab that for news and alerts that will be updated almost daily, depending on what needs to go on there, so it could be posted there as well.
Anything else? Okay. I think we'll just move along here. 1 hour monthly fireside chats. Cassie, what do you have in mind?
Don't know if you're interested at all in doing this, but what has kicked around for further communication to the board members would be if 2 board members would say take an hour or hour and a half on a Friday afternoon and say, Andy Altman and Herm Herman are going to be in the fireside room from 2 to 3:30. And you're certainly welcome to come and ask them any question you want. And so other associations have done this. That's why I brought it up. And it's been successful. And it starts out really well, and then it lasts for about 6 months, and then everybody's questions are answered, and then it kind of goes away.
Any comments?
No comment.
I think it's a good idea as a trial balloon at least, and to see how it works. I think the board members would have to be exceedingly careful, however, in participating in these, is to not make commitments as individual board members for the entire board. So the discussions in these types of fireside chats would have to be rather informal.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. I think it's a great idea. I don't participate in next door Oakmont for various reasons. One of the reasons I don't want to hear the bad comments, but one of the reasons is it's somewhat anonymous. There's a lot of anonymity. When you meet face to face with someone, there's all kinds of facial expressions that send signals, and you can really read the other person. And I think that would be good in these fireside chats. The other thing, a number of people are very afraid to come to board meetings. They don't like to stand up in front of 80 or 100 people and make comments or ask questions because they find it very intimidating. So I think an informal setting where you can be face to face and just have honest discussions about things would be worth a trial run. So I'm game for it. So if no one objects, well, I guess individual board members can object. I guess if they don't want to participate, you don't have to. But
I think that's a good idea. It would be up to the individual board members whether they wanted to participate or not. But I think we can't take any formal action today, but I think we'd like to maybe come up with a plan of action as to how we can get this started. I would suggest this.
I'll have it for the board meeting.
great.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
I probably should have spoke earlier. This is my first time here, and my name's Robert Pond. I live on Oakland Drive. And I'm the fellow that's, at least in our neighborhood, has been pushing real hard to look at speeding along Oakmont Drive. Particularly, we live between Valley Oak and the entrance to the east pro shop. So we're in that kind of downhill stretch. And some of you may have noticed there were new 25-mile-an-hour signs that were put up just recently. And that was actually the result of a long conversation that I had with the engineering department under the enforcement division, engineers and so on tied to the police department. And the issue that seems to be in place, and the reason that I'm here today, was the engineers made a suggestion to me that possibly one of the things that we can do, a step that we really need to take, is to have, hopefully with the board's support, have an article in the paper to the members about it's important to understand that the speed in Oakmont is 25, and it's posted that way as you enter Oakmont, and it's repeated throughout. And I was attempting to have signs added to our area because I've sensed over the last several years, we've been here 3 years, that there was substantial speed, and it seems like it's been getting worse, particularly this year. And the studies that they do are based on, well, when you enter the community, there's a sign. At the first stop sign, there's a sign. At a turn, there's a sign. Maybe there'll be a repeat, like you'll see more signs down by the golf club. But it's certainly not working. And we know it's not working at all where we live, and I'm hearing throughout the community that that there seems to be issues. So the suggestion from the engineer was, and again, it sounds to me as though it's certainly worth doing. And I've talked to Al Haggerty, who happens to live across the street from me, about items that might be considered to have an article about speed and responsible speed in the community. And I gave him some suggestions on that. And so I'm just here today to ask if this makes any sense at all, to have the board support, to have an article written that explains in some detail the importance of going 25 miles an hour in the community.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We have to keep reminding people, though, that we have no control over the actual speed. That's not one of our responsibilities or within our power. but it certainly is beneficial to all the members here. So I see no problem with an article like that.
We think it would be a help. Here, if I may, the step that the engineer indicated to me that had to occur was to have the community make every effort. And what I was asking for, quite frankly, and I'm afraid we'll probably get there, or I'm hoping if we have to get there, we will. Because I know there's been some police in here for people that were running stop signs and that. In fact, I'd love to know who was able to get that done, because there's been an issue about whether 25 is an acceptable speed in here and how that occurred and so on. But from the engineers I've talked to, the enforcement people I've talked to, 25 is the speed limit, and if it's posted, that's how fast people are supposed to go. So the stretch over 25, quite frankly, is apparently illegal, that helps the effort in terms of the people, if they're going to be habitual offenders, if we have that kind of an issue, somehow we have to change it, because it's not being, there's way too many people driving irresponsibly.
Yes?
The trouble is, there's an abundance of outsiders.
Just one moment. Are you picking this up, the voice? You're not. So we're videotaping this, and the people are not will not be able to hear you. So I think we better have you use a microphone.
I just wanted to say that all in good to put it in the newspaper, but a lot of the offenders are the workers that come into Oakmont, the gardeners, the handymen, the people like that. That I see them all the time in their trucks with their name on the truck,
Yes.
and they're going fast.
Mm-hmm. I can answer that too, just quickly. So.
Yeah, that was brought to my attention as well. And again, I'm just a guy that lives on the street with cars blasting by and trying to see what we can do about that. But one of the suggestions is by the engineer is it in the paper that the people who have people coming in, those people are going to homes, and have them, each person, talk to their gardener, talk to the contractors, and say, please honor the 25 mile an hour speed limit. If it comes to enforcement, you can imagine, and I actually ran some numbers, and I've shared them with the newspaper guys, and hopefully they'll include them. But the cost of a ticket is substantial. Points on your driver's license and so on, and there are many people that are way over 25 miles per hour. So I don't want to see it go there, but if that's what you do with habitual offenders, as far as I know.
Right.
Thank you. Herm? John?
As Paul Harvey would say, now I'm going to give you the rest of the story. I've heard your complaints. I've seen the same thing. We all have. So somebody called me and says, do something about this. Now, the board can't do anything directly. You brought up something so we can do to help. So I talked to the city too, probably the same people. And here's what they told me. When Oakmont was developed, they wanted to be able to have golf carts go on any of the streets. Any of the streets. Golf carts were limited to 25 miles an hour. So they set all of the streets to 25. The problem is, you take something like Oakmont Drive, if you didn't have that preset condition, the traffic study would show that that road is built for 35 miles an hour. And if the city had their way, and there hadn't been a pre-agreement to accommodate golf carts, that would be 35 miles an hour. The city knows that, and the courts know that. So here's the bummer. They will not cite you for speeding over 25 miles an hour on Oakmont Drive. The other thing is the courts don't like to mess around with small traffic cases. So unless you start to exceed, and I was told this, I couldn't believe it. Unless you really go by like 10 miles over the speed limit, they're not going to do anything anyway. So even if it was 25 and you were driving 35, the chances are they're not going to do anything. That's piece number one. Now, number two is we have a pretty safe, quiet community. For the most part, nothing happens out here. And all the police actions downtown, And that's where they assign their enforcement. And they're not going to send somebody out here. And they're certainly not going to send somebody out here to watch over things they can't control. And they're not going to give you a ticket. So what's the point? Now, running through stop signs, well, I'll tell you, that's true. You set up the corner off of McBride there. I did it one day just because I'm crazy. I sat behind the bushes that used to be there in my car, and I could not believe how many people either got blowing right through there or slowed down to maybe 10 and just kept on going. You watch their heads. There was none of this. It was like straight ahead, you know. Here I am. Better watch out for me because I'm not watching out for you. That's the situation we have. Now, occasionally they put up one of those portable radar trailers that tells you. Now, I think it would be cool. Don't tell anybody else. If they had the impression that took your picture when that happened, you know, I think that would be very effective. It'd also be a lie, but you know, anything for a cause. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you up to date on what that's the rest of the story, and that's why Oakmont really can't do anything other than going back to the education end of things, which we often end up doing anyway. Did I answer? Did they tell you anything different? That's not. If they told you something different, that's not good.
Well, I heard the same story. I mean, it starts with that, and that seems to be their first level of resistance. But after many discussions and so on, I think that if an effort comes forth, that the point of the matter is everybody is uncomfortable with cars that are going over 30 in that 35-mile-an-hour range on these streets here. And according to the engineer that I was able to, I actually bought signs, by the way, and if any of you heard, I had them out in the middle of the street and everybody slowed down, and pretty soon it only lasted about a day. They came by and said, that's a good idea, but you can't have it in the middle of the street. But and this is what got me into it, is if we all believe that 35 is too fast in here, and that's why we have the signs, they're using the carts as an excuse for why they did that, but according to, and again, it's going to be a hassle, but if we're uncomfortable with the speed, then as a community, then we have to make a stand and make it happen, and that's how it's the only way it's going to get done. It's not going to change if we don't change it.
Well, the other thing is, you know, Oakmont carries a big gun. We got a lot of votes, and they do pay attention to votes.
May I ask a question? How many speed-related accidents have there been in Oakmont in the last year?
Anybody have an answer?
I don't know. Zero.
I haven't heard of one. I just wonder if anybody else has.
Wally?
The other thing, the other thing they told me was that observers on the street, 100% of the time, estimate people are going faster than they are.
Wally?
One thing I might point out, when you said they're using golf carts as an excuse, that's not true. That is why it's 25-mile-an-hour zone originally, was because of golf carts. And if you go down Pythian, you will notice there's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on Pythian coming in from the highway or going out to the highway until you get to the first street in Oakmont, and that's where it changes to 25. So our arterials would be 35 miles an hour if it weren't for the golf carts.
Anything else? Good discussion. Cassie, why don't we used to have a podium with a microphone where people could step up to it and speak. We don't seem to have that anymore. You know why?
Closet. No, if you want it, it's just a request, so when they set the room up, we'll have it.
Yeah, I think so, because it'd be convenient for the audience that can step up to the podium and use the microphone rather than having to go up here and grab a microphone from us.
I'll keep it.
Okay, great. Wally, thank you. Or we can designate Wally each meeting to...
And that's the only exercise like that. Arlene.
This is an old issue. once before when they came up, I suggested to them when the city was out here that they paint big 25 miles an hour right in the middle of the street. And they looked at me as if I was crazy. But I often wonder, because I do drive every day, whether that would help if there were 25 painted right on the street. And people could do what I tend to do. I hate to admit I often go 30. But when somebody comes roaring up behind me, I slow down to 25. All the way, I go 25. And I think more people should try that.
Okay.
I have to catch a plane actually, so Mother's Day is I've got to wrinkle.
I'd like to just finish by if we can stay focused at this time at least on the newspaper and just maybe this for exposure, and hopefully we can just get the guys to do this, but to explain some things that might be done to slow down the contractors and so on that are in, and take that step forward, and then just I'll continue to keep personally in touch, if you will, with the engineers and the enforcement people. We have the trailer coming to be in our area again, and there are many, many things that have been done over the last several years to track speed, how many speeding, who's speeding, how fast. They can even ticket with things now. Remember that there's a lot of technology that can support this. For now, I'll take my vest and hit the road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I skipped an item, number 3, designate contact rate questions submitted to OVA Board. Who would like to address this issue?
Someone requested put that on the agenda.
Well, maybe we should explain a little more fully what the issue is. Cassie, do you want to explain what we're talking about here?
Okay, what someone thought of is if, along with the fireside chats, that if someone actually wanted to contact a board member, that, and sometimes they send it via email to Kathy and myself, but they're addressing the board, that there's been kind of a trade-off where sometimes I answer the question, sometimes Kathy answers the question, and very seldom do the board members answer the question, although they do see the question. So we were talking about possibly having one board member designated to respond to a specific request when someone emails us and says, "Dear Board," as opposed to "Dear Cassie" or "Dear Kathy."
I just want to make a comment as a new board member. I'm confused about that. You know, who is to answer these questions? I mean, I couldn't make it to the very first board meeting, and when I came back from my trip, I looked into my email box and I had 69 emails, and quite a few of them had to do with questions from owners, and they were either addressed to the board members individually, or some of them were addressed to the entire board, and answers were going back and forth, and I myself, I don't know exactly which questions I should answer and which not. So,
Andy?
I think there may be a couple parts of this. What we had in the last few weeks were an awful lot of emails that came to board members, and one of the pieces that we saw was the first piece, which is acknowledging the fact that we got a message from a member before it even gets answered. And when we are all getting it, we talked about as a board trying to find having one person be designated to say we received it, we will respond. And then the second piece of it we also talked about was putting together putting one person or a group of people, as Elka said, to be able to actually answer the questions, go to the chairs of the committees if that was appropriate to get answers, or to the board members to find the right answer. And that would just make it easier for all of us, so 7 of us aren't answering the same question, spending that time.
We do have an OVA comment response procedure. Is everyone aware of that? well, Elka's not aware because she's a new member, but it was passed back in October of 2009, and it basically set forth a procedure to answer questions. But in that, it said that there should be at least one board member who would be a monitor, who would review all messages and make sure that a reply got back. And he's saying, thank you. And then making sure that somebody is answering it. Do you think we need to do that?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yes, Herb?
I suggest it's up to the president to enforce that policy.
Shall I appoint you as the monitor? Okay, so
Well, no,
we probably should enforce the policy, and we're going to have a monitor. And I'm not going to put you on the spot right now.
no, but it needs to be spread, spread around probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we want to do it? Do we want to do it monthly, every 2 months assignment, and then it's passed on to somebody else, something like that?
Let's see, we have 7 board members, and it's 24 months. So.
Let's just. How about a monitor for 2 months, and then that monitor has the obligation to remind board members his 2 months is up, and then somebody else gets appointed. And Herb, I'm selecting you as the first monitor.
Yeah, no,
All right.
that's agreeable.
All right, maybe that'll handle the problem then. Okay.
But how do I become the monitor? I mean, who directs the stuff to me?
Oh, okay, that does present a problem now, because when we forward emails, we can only put 3 directors on the email, because if you put 4, we're having a board meeting, it has to be in the public.
No.
No, okay.
I can always email the question to all the board members so they're aware of the question.
Okay.
But only one board member needs to respond.
Okay. So that will be the policy then. We will basically make sure every board member gets that question.
I think I have another suggestion, because I think this needs to have 2 board members at a time be designated. The reason why this, for example, I'm going to be gone at least a week and a half. In the next 2 months, I'll be gone at least a week and a half, maybe close to 2 weeks.
Okay. So I'll need one more board member.
I'll do it.
Okay. Alan will help you.
Okay.
So you 2 are for the first 3 months. Now you got 2 people. How's that?
Well,
and then we'll pass it on after 3 months. And you guys decide who's going to answer.
3 months. 3 months is okay, except there's another week that I'll be gone. And then if it goes,
Coordinate your schedules.
all right. Okay. So hopefully this will solve it somewhat. But your responsibility would be to find out who's supposed to be answering this. Is it really directed to the president, or is it directed to Cassie? That sort of thing. And just kind of keep an eye on, make sure that we get responses back to the public. Okay. Item number 5 on the agenda is library volunteer request for additional space. Is someone here to address that? Julie?
Tony and I will try and answer any questions. Thank you. Tony and I will try and answer any questions that you might have.
Well, you apparently would like to have some additional library space, and you're asking, what can the board do to help you? I can visualize that a library always is going to be in need of some more space. I see the tons of books that come in. You have to be selective on what you keep and that sort of thing. We have, as you know, we have limited facilities, and we know where the library is located, and it's unlikely at the present time that we're looking at expansion of the building at the CAC. I'm speaking for myself, not for the whole board, but that's my sense. We've got so many things going, like the Burger project, that it's unlikely. I know the Burger Committee is considering, in terms of improving the Burger Center, that maybe some of the activities that occur at the CAC can be transferred over to the Burger Center. That might then open up some space which could possibly be utilized as library space. But I don't think we have any immediate thoughts about expanding the space. What was your thought?
The reason that we are asking for, I realize the walls only stretch so far. However, there are certain activities that go on in the library that need additional space because, not just because we could use a lot more shelf space, but because, for example, our office is very cramped to the point where we have had to create another workspace in what we call Don's Den, where all the movies are, and we are installing a table and chairs because if you get more than 2 people working in the office, it becomes cramped. By doing that, we have now reduced any space for anyone that would like to just sit and read. Therefore, we have no quiet space for that to happen. People also come in with laptops, and they use that space, especially with our new table, to get on the internet. So, that's one thing. The library, or the CAC, needs a quiet space for reading. Also, again, the workspace is very cramped, and one reason is that the storage space is stuffed. So even if we could not have more actual library room, borrowing some storage space for supplies, for overflow, we are unfortunately unable to put out all of the donations that we receive, even if we could stretch a little bit more. We have in storage 72 shelves and no cases to put them in. And for that we need floor space. So, let me see, what else? That almost covers it. I'm sure I could give you a million more reasons why we can't put out everything, why we can't keep duplicates, all of those things. So any help as far to borrow some space, we could also, somebody suggested, for example, in the card room, there's wall space where a genre or two could be moved. The history area, which takes up quite a lot of space in the library, and is not used as much as the popular library stuff, and things of that sort. So we'd like you to consider it whenever you are working with space throughout Oakmont.
Well, see, then you're going to have to talk to Wally there, who's a bridge player. And he's going to want some peace and quiet in that card room, maybe.
Library readers are very quiet.
Yeah. You know, I had thought of the same idea you thought. I thought there's a lot of wall space in that room that could be used for library space, but then, you know, I floated it for a little while, and then I talked to some, actually, card players, and they thought, well, that would interrupt the concentration, that sort of thing. But gosh, it would be nice if we could work out something like that.
I think so. And so I hope you'll consider something like that. And did you have a question?
Yeah, John?
We have a couple. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it came up today, or yesterday, at a meeting at the Olema campground. Offsite. No, this was the RV group. But the library came up, and one of the questions that came up, and I don't know the answer to, is that apparently we store a lot of VHS tapes. And the question is that viable? How much is used? Could they be stored off-site? Could they be changed to some other format? I don't know. So I'm ignorant on it, so I asked the question.
We are weeding out tapes as quickly as we can because there are fewer and fewer people that have VHS or VCRs. There are some, they go in and out, and they'd be unhappy if we didn't keep the ones that we do not have DVDs and so on. However, our DVD shelves are just about full. We've had to take duplicates off of them and store them in our limited storage space. But we do weed out VHS tapes as quickly as possible.
Do you have any beta tapes?
We haven't managed to keep those,
You know, this is a situation where, gosh, if people can just use their creative minds and start talking together and maybe cooperating a little, we might come up with some extra space for you. But it's going to require some people giving here and there, I think.
I think so. I think so too. When I read about the coffee cart, and which, by the way, we're excited about. But have you folks figured out what's going to happen after summer? Is it going to come indoors? And wouldn't that be a nice place to put some nice books for people to read while they're drinking coffee? That's as creative as I can get today.
Yes, sir.
This comes as no surprise to me. I've known that you're cramped for space for some time, and it's been on my mind as one of the space needs we need in the entire CAC complex, CAC Burger complex. And I certainly don't have any immediate solution, although the long-range solution, of course, is to add on to the probably the front of the library space. One thing I'm curious about, you have, I don't know how many books you have in the library now, but
close to 25,000.
But how, since you don't have a checkout system, which of course would be almost impossible to develop, I suppose, how do you clean out books that aren't used very often? I mean, what system do you have to do that?
Hello, my name is Tony, and I'm also on the library committee. We have 115 folks that help us twice a day go through donations, and they individually go to our shelves to check for duplicates, to check that books aren't so grody that people would get sick using them, because they're all 100% donations. And we get bugs, cobwebs, so we have dedicated staff that are on it daily, and they go through the shelves and pull duplicates, and they add new authors and new media.
Okay, but there might be a dozen or so books on your shelves that have never been checked out. Is that possible?
Oh, definitely.
So there's really no way to know that, is there?
Not unless a person is real diligent. For example, Jim Cotton is in charge of the history, and he's the only one allowed to shelve history, and he keeps a tab on everything. And things that don't move, he gets rid of.
In other words, he can tell pretty well as things are moving in and out,
Yes.
in other words.
Yes.
Is this true with all of your different sections?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yes, Paulie?
I might add that going back 8 years or so, I spent 18 months on the committee with John Taylor on what we should do with the new CAC building. Now, this is when it was just an idea. And we checked with every possible user of that building. And I have to say that one of the things that never came up as being really necessary was to have a spot to quietly read in the library. And the reason it didn't was because of space problems. That if you're going to keep a lot of books, you don't have space for people. They're going to have to take them home and read. And that was the thought at that time. And we did put, a chair in your little annex that has the CDs and so forth. But that was it. And that was debated at some degree. And they said, no, it's not worth the space we would have to devote to have a reading room in the library. We can't have one big enough to do that. Now times change, I'm telling you, this was 8 years ago.
We have gotten complaints. Why is this library so noisy? We want to sit and quietly, read, look at picture books and whatever. I ended up putting up a sign. This is not a quiet space. It's a public space, and therefore you will hear discussion, argument, whatever. And it's because of that. But people would like to be able to sit. And maybe we can never do that in the existing space. But I know that you are considering a lounge in general, not just for the library people. So, okay.
Any other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and move. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is the central facility and main entrance sod reductions. Would you like, Baldy, you want to hand her the microphone?
Oh.
Here I am.
Do you want to sit? You can sit if you like.
That would be great.
Yeah, but just have it.
Where do you want me to sit?
Well, just sit down the front there. Yeah.
I'll just turn my chair around. Okay.
That's good.
I passed out some numbers charts that our landscape Scandia has provided me, and I'll just give you a little background. The landscape committee met Tuesday, and we discussed the need for the association to eliminate many of the lawns that are using an abundance of water. And I'm pretty sure everyone's read in the newspaper what is going on with the water. I met with Coney, who is the head of Scandia Landscaping, and he does our maintenance. We agreed on a plan for the huge lawns along Oakmont Drive behind the burger. I've given you copies of his proposal. We also want to remove the lawns at both entrances, Oakmont and Pythian. You have a proposal for those also. I will pass around pictures of the possible ground cover we are considering planting there. It's called Cotoneaster, and this is just for the entrances where the lawns are. There's not very big lawns. Cotoneaster horizontalis, it's a low-growing, spreading ground cover. It grows outward rather than upward. It has white flowers in the spring and red berries in the winter, and is evergreen and drought tolerant, as well as very hardy. Also attracts butterflies and bees. I'm going to pass some pictures around. I only have, my printer wasn't working very well, so I just have one copy. For the burger area, we haven't a firm planting plan yet, but I told Connie I would like to do groupings of good-sized boulders with some drought-tolerant plants nestled around the boulders. In other words, not mass plantings, but just several groupings. We would still have the rose hedges along the building and 20 foot of lawn along the sidewalk. He determined that if we turned off all the sprinklers towards the back and the middle and just left the sprinklers going on the lawns along the edge of Oakmont Drive, they would cover about 20 feet. So we would maintain some green along Oakmont Drive and then landscape behind it with mulch and groupings of plantings. We also will be able to receive $5,000 per meter for the grass removal from the city, for cash for grass. Any questions?
Herm?
You're talking about Oakmont Drive side now, right?
Yes, behind the burger,
Yeah, Oakmont Drive side, okay.
Right.
You're talking about maintaining maybe 20 feet of lawn, and then the rest would be a ground cover of some kind?
That would be at the entrances. The ground cover this.
Okay.
Okay, let me get a picture.
Could you hold your microphone up so that the video people can catch your voice?
Okay.
Thank you.
You said something about you can sprinkler the lawn back 20 feet.
Yeah, I'm going to show you in this master plan. This is Oakmont Drive. This is the big lawn at the burger. The sprinklers would go just 20 feet. All the back part where the trees, mostly trees are, would be mulched. And then we'd do some plantings in there. Yeah. He hasn't given me a price on boulders and plantings.
There'd be 20.
There would still be approximately 20 feet of lawn along a drought or no drought. I hate to see us eliminate all green grass in the world.
That's why we decided that would
Okay.
work.
John?
Yes. What was the amount the city will pay us back per square foot?
Meter, it used to be 50 cents a square foot.
Yeah.
They doubled that to $1 a square foot, up to 2,500 square feet. So now, per meter, you can get $5,000 per meter.
Per meter, you switch units on me, that screwed me up.
Okay,
Because it is roughly 3 feet in a meter, roughly. So you're talking.
No, we're talking about tick,
Oh.
tick, 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 tick meter.
Oh, mechanical meter. Okay. Pardon me. My question is this: if we took a look at the total amount we'd get from the city, what could we get the same amount so that we were revenue neutral? And go into it and say, well, we like it to look like this. But what if we took the approach, we have this much money, which is revenue neutral, what can we get for that and spend up to that limit?
That
It's just a thought.
$5,000 that we could get for the burger meter would cover the cost of redoing the two entrances.
So it would be.
They're each going to be $2,000, so.
So it would be revenue neutral then.
Well, for those, not for the burger.
I'm trying to think.
The numbers.
I was trying to think of it as the whole project. I think I'm not making.
May I make a comment down here at the end? My mathematics on this thing is that, or arithmetic is that it's $2,000 for each entrance.
Correct.
That is to remove the lawn that is at the entrances, each entrance, that is maintained by the Oakmont Village Association now, and to plant over that cotoneaster. That we would be paying for ourselves. The lawn out in front of the Burger Center along Oakmont Drive, we can get money for. And when we remove the lawn, and that would be a planning that would go in there, which has not been, no suggestions have been made for the planning, but certainly it would be something like the medians or various other low water use plants with color and that sort of thing. That's another project that would be $5,000 that our maintenance manager, Rick, has already secured for us by making an application to the city. So we're going to get that $5,000 and we can do that, but it's going to probably just get eaten up by the area in front of the Burger Center, the lawn along Oakmont Drive. Is that clear? Sort of.
Rick, did you want to comment? Our maintenance manager?
In the cash for grass program, you get $5,000 per meter. So they take that meter and you submit what you're going to do for that, and they look over your plans. They just don't give you the $5,000.
Right.
So we would be submitting the plan for the burger area to the city, and they would look at our cost for that particular meter. The Pythian Road meter, I believe, is under another homeowners association.
Right.
So for that particular meter, we could submit the plan, but that, I don't think we have control over that particular meter. So if they wanted to go in with us, you could get up to $5,000 for plants and then an additional $1,000 per meter for hardware. for the new latest and greatest upgrades on your irrigation controllers and that type of stuff. But they look at it as an individual meter, and they look at the plans for that particular area that is controlled by that meter.
Where's the water come from at the main entrance?
Quail Run.
It's my understanding through Coney, Scandia 5, that it comes out of there's a well over there, and it's fed off of that well. That's what I believe. That's what he brought up in the meeting that we had.
Right.
If there is no city water meter per se, there wouldn't be any funds available for that.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what do we need to do, if anything, at this stage? I mean, you've suggested this, or are you suggesting we take action at our next board meeting?
We have, I think it's 90 or 120 days to get this project and get it completed in order to receive the money. We are actually, even if the city runs out of money right now, we are in the pipeline.
All right.
And that clock started ticking on Tuesday.
Okay, now part of this, we're talking about the Burger Center, though. And my concern is that we have a burger committee that's now having an architectural firm that's going to basically give us an idea of what we can do with Burger in terms of improving it, replacing it, adding on to it, whatever. Okay, all kinds of options. And then eventually the committee's going to make a recommendation, the board's going to have to make a decision. But it could be that the areas you're talking about might be influenced by some of those decisions. How are we going to handle that?
Well, the thing is, we need to cut back on the grass and the watering. Even if we just stop watering that area in the back part and mulch it, we can get free mulch from the golf course. And Cassie doesn't like that idea, but even if it's just mulched, then if you decide to expand the burger or whatever, it's not going to be affected.
So our best option would be to, if we're going to do something, is to have it, whatever we do is to have the city pay for it, so we don't spend any money, and then if we had to put a parking lot there.
Well, they aren't going to pay for everything. But.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want to see us putting in nice landscaping, and the next thing we do is we rip it out because we're going to put a parking lot in or something, or do something else. But that's. I hate to keep putting you off because you've also submitted plans for the green work, and you know.
Well, the board needs to figure out what they want to do.
Right. We're working on it.
This is just proposals. We just recommend, and hopefully you can make a decision.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Yes, John?
May I make a comment?
Sure, Harriet.
Stay there.
Okay. Our HOA got a letter that we need to reduce our water usage by 20%, which we did by simply running the sprinklers 1 minute less each time we run them, and we have cut our water 20%. I don't think everything has to be ripped out in order to reach whatever goal has been required. The other thing I want to say is that the polite term is mulch, but when you drive around the neighborhood, everyone who has mulched looks like they have dirt in their front yard. And a lot of places are dirt with green polka dots. That these plants will never, in my lifetime, begin to cover the dirt.
Any other comments?
My concern is, just for discussion, is the landscape, the architectural committee went back and forth numerous times with Quail Run, which has quite a bit of landscaping that's been replaced, and we were all scared to death that it wasn't going to look good. But it seems to look fine, and it seems to, you know, they had a plan and they did it sequentially, and I think it's going to work out and look decent. I'm just concerned about this mulch, and that we should spend the money to buy better quality, higher quality mulch than free mulch, and then see what it looks like, because we we held Quail Run to a kind of a higher standard, and then here we are as OVA Association, and we're just throwing a bunch of free mulch on the, to cover the lawn. So to me, that doesn't make sense, and we'll probably get a backlash from a lot of the residents saying, you required us to do X, Y, and Z. Why aren't you doing the same thing?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think the Landscape Improvement Committee will come up with some concrete plans. And since we're going to be spending the city's money, and since the possibility of putting that whole area into a parking place is down the road at least 2 or 3 years, there's no reason not to go ahead with it, and at least to discuss it with a concrete proposal that comes down.
2 to 3 years.
So I would suggest putting it on the agenda of a meeting.
You want to do that? Okay, let's put it on the agenda. Any other discussion? Thank you. The next item is the OVA office design and presentation. At our executive meeting, we had a presentation by Karsten and Harris, designers, architectural firm, and they basically gave us a proposal. They went out and got 2 bids for the improvements. Give you a little background on this. I think at the last board meeting I said that it appeared that we were going to be faced with some significant tenant improvements by moving into the Brad Benson building. And they could be as much as $160,000, and that we had gone to the finance committee and got approval for $200,000. But we would have more information after we had a presentation by this particular architectural firm, and after we got bids in. And so that's the process that we've gone through. When we last moved from our last location, which happened to be the Brad Benson building that we're moving into, approximately 5-6 years ago, at that time it cost $141,700 to make the move, which included tenant improvements and furniture and just all kinds of things. Anyhow, what it boils down to is that they got 2 bids. They're pretty confident in the lore of the 2 bids. They're both reputable firms, and I may have Cassie comment after I finish here commenting. One was significantly lower, but not a great deal lower. That is, it was about, I think, $30,000 or $40,000 lower. What it boils down to, though, the move-in costs were actually going to be somewhat more than we even anticipated. And the original contract bid was about $251,000, tenant improvements and moving in, and also about $12,500 in design fees. So we're looking at like $260 something. Okay, we think we can. We have a $10,000 credit from the landlord towards tenant improvements. So we reduce that by $10,000. There are some items that were in the contract that we don't think we really need. That would be nice to have, but we're going to bypass on that. If we eliminated those things, and if we possibly can negotiate some further reductions with the landlord, we can probably get it down to about $232,000 as far as tenant improvements and moving in. We don't have a contract yet. One thing you have to understand is that we have already signed a lease. So we are committed to the lease. And there's basically no way to back out of the lease at this stage, of even if we wanted to. We have just some minor negotiating power in this matter. But this has been long coming. This isn't something that just occurred overnight. I don't know if anybody here remembers the proposed building on the Greenwood for the new OVA office. It's been a problem for a number of years. Probably going back actually to the point where the OVA moved their present offices in back in 2010 at our present location. No one was ever satisfied with that move. They went through 4 management teams. A lot of things could not get done that needed to be done. If you go over there and look right now, just look at the entrance as you drive into the OVA office, covered with weeds everywhere. So it hasn't been a pleasant experience for both our residents and especially our employees, who have never really liked it. And that's why the whole thing started out with we need a new administration building. So it was proposed that let's build a $600,000 building on the Greenwood. A few people got very upset about that. Well, more than a few people. A lot of people got upset about that. Created a huge controversy. But the board at that time felt they really needed it, and so they stuck with their guns. And then it went up to $800,000. And then finally, it went up above, I think, above $1 million, and they finally caved in, realizing, we're not going to spend that kind of money, and the public doesn't want it. So, and then we went to the beauty shop and tried to, maybe buy that for $300,000, but then we'd have to put 10 improvements in that thing too. So it wasn't really satisfactory. It wasn't a place where we wanted. So we finally, bit the bullet, and we agreed to move it to the Brad Benson building, and we have a lease for that. Now, there's good news about this whole thing. Okay, first of all, we're moving it. If everybody wants to move, that is the employees in the office, and the board feels the same way. We've negotiated a better deal on the lease. We're getting $1.10 per square foot, whereas we were paying $1.35 per square foot in our present building.
$1.80.
$1.80. Okay, $1.80 a square foot. And so we're getting a lot better deal on the rent. Now, it's still going to cost us the same amount of money for the reason that we're also getting a lot more usable space. At our present building, there's a lot of space that was not usable. I don't know if you've all been there, I'm sure, but there's a huge hallway. Guess who's paying for it? OVA. It's a part of the deal. And it's not really usable space. We don't have a hallway in the next building. So we're getting a lower rent per square foot, and we're getting more space. It's been estimated that over the 5-year lease that we presently have, we will save $69,000 in rent during that period of time. We have also an agreement to renew the lease for another 5 years, which means if we did that, which we probably will, we would save $159,000 over 10 years. So you can look at the cost that we're paying right now as a kind of a fairly large expense, but if you amortize it over a possibility of 10 years, then it doesn't look so bad. So I've stated that the board would always be out front and honest, and would reveal these things and not leave people in the dark, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, Cassie, you have any further comments?
The general picture of this is, even though I know it sounds like a lot of money, it sounded like a lot of money to us. And then they went down line item by line item by line item. And one of the important things that everybody has to understand is that they had to redesign the space because of all of these ADA requirements. So it wasn't just about moving into a new office space and putting in nice furnishings. We're reusing all of our furnishings that we have now. It's about moving walls, making corridors wider, making everything ADA accessible, and that adds a lot of cost to the space. So when you have to move the walls and the corridors, you also have to move the electrical sockets, the air conditioning vents up in the roofs. You also have to redo all the ductwork. So what seems like a simple job turns into a more complex issue because of all the redesigning we had to do in order to make all of these accommodations. So the money isn't, what you're going to have is you're going to have a nice office space. It's not going to be the Taj Mahal, but it's going to be a much nicer, much more user-friendly. There's going to be an area where people can sit now instead of walking up to a counter and having people 6 deep. You're going to be able to sit on a nice banquette and wait your turn, maybe read a magazine, I don't know, have a cup of coffee while you're waiting. The space is going to be more friendly to all of our office staff. We're going to have more offices that are already there to accommodate people. And so we also are going to have 3 conference rooms. And so one of the conference rooms is a very large room that could probably accommodate 40 people. Again, we're reusing all of our conference equipment. And it also has access from the outside, so it's possible that we could even have nighttime meetings, or people don't have to access that conference room by walking through our office space. So there's more benefits. We even have an AV room because we want to do a lot more video work and put that on the website. Rick Aubert is moving his office because we need more space in the maintenance shop. So Rick's office is being moved into this space as well. So in other words, there's a lot more going on in this office space.
Yes, John?
There's one more real strong benefit that we've looked at. And there's an option to buy the building within a few years. And if we look down the road, it could be very beneficial to Mr. Benson. Excuse me, but also very beneficial to us. So all this cost that sink into the project to bring the building up to our standards and ADA standards. If we were to go ahead, and I think it's a pretty good possibility that we pick up that building and it becomes our property. Then we recoup all of that. Now, at the time, I guess, if we keep going the way we're going, Mr. Benson is going to have 2 anchor residents, really, of a significance. One's the Umpqua Bank, and then the other one is the Oakmont office. And depending what comes up at that time, it's certainly a possibility that we could buy the whole building. And if the bank is still there, they could be renting. We'd rent the building to them, and that would supplement income to help pay for the whole purchase. Now, so it's a dreamland. I'm not saying it's dreamland. I think it's a real possibility down the road. It's just something to keep in mind.
Any other comments? We haven't actually signed the contract with the contractor. We still have to negotiate details on that, but that probably will occur fairly soon. One thing is we have some pressure to get out of the old building and get into the new building as soon as possible. So things will be happening fairly quickly here.
Yeah, I would make a comment that I think everybody's been involved in this deal for quite some time, and the whole trend and the whole problem with an office building. And the board is unanimously in support of this project as the most economic and efficient and sensible way to deal with our problem of office space.
Any other comments? Okay, and I'll move to the next item. The architectural restriction, 50% gravel rock. Why did I put this on the agenda? I wanted to hear from Wally. Wally had some history on that. Oh, I invited Mary Ann Neufeld to be here too. She's obviously a very important person in respect of this issue. She couldn't be here because of personal reasons, but we're not going to make any decisions today anyhow. But Wally, would you like to go ahead and have the floor?
Sure. I was out of town when the last board meeting was held, so I watched it about a week ago on the internet. And as I recall, it opened after the hour of comment, basically, on pickleball, with a request from a resident to have a hearing over a problem with the architectural committee. And that problem was twofold. Evidently, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they had submitted a plan late last summer or early fall to redo their front yard. And then as the drought problem started coming out with rules out of Sacramento, etc., they changed it, and they did not go back to the architectural committee with a revised plan. The problem here is that the 15% rock rule is written in our Articles of Incorporation, and it is really the only architectural item in our Articles of Incorporation. Therefore, the Architectural Committee has no choice but to enforce that. They must enforce that. Now, about 10 years ago, I think it was my last year as chair of the Architectural Committee, John Taylor walked in the office one day and he said, I've gone around Oakmont, spent 10 days, and I'm filing a complaint on every home that violates the 15% rule. And he said, I've got about 40 of them. And I'm also filing a complaint on every house that has a fence, an illegal fence in their front yard. Well, there were even more. There were about 60 of those. So when I was able to breathe again, I said, John, do me a favor. Let's do this one at a time. Go ahead with the fence thing, but wait till we get this handled, and then we can do the rock. And he agreed, thank goodness. So the Architectural Committee attacked the front yard fence problem, and we wound up making some changes to allow some of them, etc. Meanwhile, I go to our attorney with the rock problem because I want to see what he's going to say about this. So Malcolm said, well, because we were at that time in a kind of mini drought, it wasn't so bad that Sacramento was issuing rules and regulations, but we were having a water problem in Sonoma County. And he said if any resident would go to court, a judge would throw that clause out and say that is unenforceable because of current conditions. So here is what I suggest you do. As these come up, look at them. If they look good, give them a waiver. Now, this is not going to say you're not backing the Architectural Committee, but the board has the right to do whatever the hell they want within the law. And he said the waiver thing is the thing to do. And I said, what about changing the Articles of Incorporation? And he said, well, you saw what happened when you tried to do that with the...
Wally, it's not in the Articles of Incorporation.
Pardon?
It's not in the Articles of Incorporation. It's in the CC&Rs.
It's in the Articles. Yeah. Yeah.
It's in the CC&Rs.
It's in the CC&Rs?
Yes.
I thought it was in there.
It's not in there.
Okay. At any rate, he said issue a waiver. You can do that. And as I watched the board meeting on the internet, I believe that Frank brought that up, that we can do a waiver on that. Now, the people were in violation of the architectural rules in that they changed their plan without going back to the Architectural Committee. That's a big no-no. But some kind of arrangement can be made to cover that kind of thing. And when we're in an area where we have a problem that, such as a drought, that something, you have to use a little common sense here. And I was kind of appalled that the board did not go along with Frank's suggestion that we issue a waiver.
That's not the reason I asked you here.
Pardon? Oh, no, I realize that. No, I know that. I know that. But Frank knew nothing about the prior opinion from our legal people. But this was what he suggested, and that's what Malcolm Manuel suggested 10 years ago, and I'm sure would do so again today. Anyhow, I just wanted to get this information to those of you who didn't know that on the board, that this is one way around the rock problem, is an individual yard-by-yard waiver of that rule. And changing either the CC&Rs or the Articles of Incorporation is a very costly thing. If you could get enough votes to do it, which is also problematical. So you don't even want to look at that to go that way. But you certainly can use the waiver bill.
Thank you, Wally. Any comments? Yeah, Andy?
I have one because I have a feeling I was the one you were appalled at, Wally. I was the one who made the comment that I understand a waiver is absolutely a viable alternative for something for a board to do in an architectural issue. But when it comes to the rock rule, what I found in the case, in this instance that we were hearing at that board meeting, was that the architectural committee made a very legitimate request of those homeowners. They did not ask them at all to remove their rock. They asked them to place not only drought-tolerant plants, but plants that require almost zero water. I mean, these are like xeriscape plants. There's succulents and stuff in the rock bed that was not permitted. So in the case of something like that, in my opinion, a waiver is not something that the board should even consider, because I believe a waiver to change something that completely alters the character of the community is something that I think is incredibly important that the board should consider not doing. Because that is something that I don't think we could ever take back. Once you allow that, it's grandfathered in, and we'll end up with rock, astroturf, and plastic flowers throughout Oakmont. And I'm not sure most people are going to accept that. But in the case you're referring to over last one, the alternative, the architectural committee was very, very willing to negotiate and come up with an alternative. And I think they continue to do that with people who have violated and not mandate that they make total change to what they've done, but come up with ways to mitigate what they've done and soften the approach. And I think it's incumbent upon the architectural committee to come forward and make that recommendation to change something like removing the rock before we consider that.
And I don't disagree with that at all.
Just a quick comment. The architecture committee in regard to the rock is between a rock and a hard place on this. They cannot legitimately, the architecture committee cannot legitimately give permission to violate the CC&Rs. You can't do it. The board could give a waiver. That's possible, but it has to come to the board. The architecture can't do it. And yet the architecture committee knows full well that if it wound up in a court, that no court would enforce that 15% rule. So they're just sort of stuck. And it's incumbent upon the board only if it gets to the board. If the board wanted to grant a waiver, that's possible. But the architecture committee can't do that.
No, in fact, I thought that was a point I was making, that the architectural committee may not do that under any circumstances, but the board can. And when I say issue a waiver, I didn't mean a blanket, what you have now is okay. I'm just saying that a waiver that they waive the 15% rule, provided you do whatever other things the architectural committee says you have to do. You can still have more than 15% rock in that specific yard, but there are other things you may have to do, not just accept the plan or what they've already planted. No, I wouldn't even go there. Still up to the architectural committee. to decide what other things can be done in there along with more than 15% rock that will make it look acceptable to the community.
So what you're referring to is a conditional waiver. It would be a conditional.
Right, a conditional right. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other comments? We're at 5 o'clock. Go ahead.
Just one other thing is, whenever you give a waiver, you have to specifically say why you're giving the waiver. So in addition to the specifications of what you're requesting, there has to be some logic behind it, some reason. It's called the business judgment rule. So you are ruling for a waiver, and there's a reason why, and along with the specifications.
Yeah. And the reason why could be the drought.
Right. One word, all you need, drought.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, that's the agenda. Thank you for coming. That's it.